All right, hello, welcome to the ETC Guitar YouTube channel. Continuing on with the 6G6 Bassman here, we've got another example of kind of a hodgepodge of new caps and original caps here. So we're going to replace all of these with brand new F&Ts, the classic 22 microfarad 500 volt. These are great caps. A lot of people use them, myself included. So we will be replacing all 6 of those here across the board. And then as I showed in earlier videos, just kind of some shenanigans going on here. I'll zoom in to show you what I mean, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. But for example, this cap has a 90-degree angle L here that's resting on top of the resistor and soldered there, the big glob of solder, instead of going into the eyelet. And yeah, just the solder joints themselves don't look too great. This is obviously a replacement, or at least the original, but they flipped it around because you can see the tolerance band is going a different way. It's one way to tell with Fenders is they always had the tolerance band going in the same direction, all of the resistors next to each other. So, or at least I've never seen one that didn't have that, but this is obviously touched up. So either non-original or flipped when this install was done. But either way, we'll check them all, redo all of this, put in brand new caps, and continue on with the project. So you guys have seen me do this probably, I don't know, at least half a dozen times now. So I'm not sure I'm going to go into, the full detail. Maybe I'll do some time lapses and whatnot, but we're going to try and power through this tonight because we've got a lot of work to do. So let's get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take this off because it's obviously not necessary. It is funny to me again that somebody would put a piece of tape on here pointing out a cold solder joint. Obviously if you found that, you would just fix it. You don't need to tape it for the next person. Maybe that's to explain why they did the L. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. But either way, we'll crumble that, get that out of here. And this is the super fun part of trying to desolder everything. So let's just see how all this stuff's connected. What kind of solder they used. Oh. Okay, that explains some of it. I don't know if you can see it yet. Let me do this and I'll give you a better look. So hopefully you can see that the resistor is broken. So that's why they had a big glob of solder, was trying to basically connect these two together. And then they had this as kind of a bridge to hold them together even better. So instead of just replacing the resistor, I guess that was the move. Kind of crazy, but you know what, man, people do crazy stuff. So obviously that resistor is a goner, so we don't have to worry about trying to be careful taking that sucker out. Kind of funny, kind of sad. Wow, I was like barely even in the eyelet too. Okay, onward. Looks like this might have been broken on the other side too. That just kind of goes perfectly in line. Look at this. This wasn't even in the freaking eyelet, just sitting on top. All of this just goes right in line with all the other work in the circuit board. That's why I'm afraid to kind of get into that, because everything else was so poorly done. Look at this. Just it's not even in the eyelet. Yeah, it's just really unfortunate. So we're going to get this set up for the owner. He got kind of screwed over by a shop. He did a trade for this amplifier, and a lot of stuff with the amplifier was not disclosed, such as the replaced power transformer with a completely wrong model, stuff like that. But it's hard, when you're buying vintage amps, the allure is there and you don't know what you're looking at. Most people don't. You might see some work done, but you don't know if it was good work or not. You don't know if the right parts were in there or not. And so sometimes that results in unfortunate situations where the amp is a bit of a basket case, and this is definitely one of those. Doesn't mean it can't be fixed or that, there's not hope for it. It just means that, obviously the value should be quite a bit lower, but they didn't even have the decency to J-hook. Look at this. It's not even in the eyelet. It's just sitting there, tack soldered onto the old lead there. All right, so we've got it all cleaned out more or less there. I'm a little bit worried about what we're going to see when we flip the board over. So let's just go ahead and see how these bridge connections are looking. My guess is probably pretty mangled unless they didn't touch it at all, which would be great. But I'm not counting on it. So let's lift these up here. So like these two caps right here are connected to each other. These two right here. But okay, doesn't look too bad. We got some junk. Looks like some old leads in this one. Let's see if we can pull that out. Cool, so we got the bridge connections all redone there. Don't mind all this. This is just old flux and does not affect anything. We'll go ahead and clean this area up a little bit with isopropyl, and then we'll start mocking up the caps. And just like I always do with these, we will get them in, get a solid mechanical connection. We will silicone the bottom, and then we will solder in. So we'll kind of take it piece by piece here, but first let's clean the board just a little bit. All right, slide update. So I measured the resistors here. Obviously, we've got this, which is a 56K, which is a goner, and I unfortunately do not have any replacements in this value. I only have quarter watt, half watt. I don't have any 1 watt or greater. So that means I got to make an order. This 4.7K tested perfectly fine, but if we're replacing this one, and I'm not going to replace it with a 1 watt carbon comp, I will replace it probably with the Vichet power metal films that I really like. Here, I'll grab one real quick. These guys, which are pretty compact, but these are a 2 watt resistor, so twice the wattage of these 1 watts here. And I'm going to probably do just a big order of these in a bunch of different values so I have them more available. They're really small, compact, small leads, which makes them a lot easier to fit. You can see how much smaller the lead is versus the 1 watt carbon comp here. So especially in tight places like this where we're trying to fit a lot into an eyelet, these are great. And then this 27K, this measured high, so this one would need to be replaced as well. So really only one decent one left. We're going to replace all 3 and have to do an order. Unfortunately, that means I'm not going to be able to finish this tonight, but we can get everything mocked in and then just not solder where we need to add the resistors. So that's no big deal. We'll continue on with that in mind and finish it up once the parts come in. All right, so we've got those all mounted up. Looks good to me. So we'll just go ahead and snip these ends, and plenty of mechanical connection. The silicone itself is not holding them in place. If you can see it, it's just giving some additional support, which is kind of exactly what you want while also not leaving a giant mess for the next guy, because that's a pain. Been there, done that. So yeah, this looks good. Let's go ahead and snip the excess on the other side. We'll crimp over the ends so it's nice and tight. All right, so we've got the Doghouse all done, or at least as far as we can go tonight. We're going to have to order 3 resistors like I mentioned. So once those come in, we'll be able to install them. I've got the wires just tack soldered in here so that nothing is going to pop out. But we're going to have to move on, and it's pretty late already, nearly 1 o'clock. So I'm going to end here tonight and then pick this up on the circuit board probably tomorrow. See what surprises we have there and what we can get done while we're waiting for more parts. I do already have a bunch of resistors for the other side that just for measuring and seeing what needed to be replaced. But unfortunately, I did not know that this resistor was snapped. Otherwise, I would have obviously ordered those parts originally. So anyways, we'll end here tonight and pick up, well, you guys will see in a second, but for me, pick up in another day. All right. It is a new day, and we've made some progress off camera. I went ahead and replaced both of these switches here. So they're Carling replacement switches. The ones in here were both non-original, did not match, and neither were of good quality for this use case. So obviously this giant blue behemoth, it's crazy if somebody put that in there, especially because these switches are not very expensive, but both of those have been swapped in, so that's good to go. And now we can kind of focus our attention elsewhere in the circuit. There is so much to be done over here. It's just really a mess, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to be very, very slow, methodical, basically redo all the solder joints too. A lot of the original or seemingly original solder joints look pretty suspect. So this amp is due for some love for sure, but we're going to chip away at it. So we're kind of getting rid of everything on this side and slowly going to make our way down. Next up, I think we'll tackle the screen resistors here, the 470 ohms, and replace them with these nice 3-watt replacements. The solder joints are pretty poor, and it is original as far as I can tell, but there's giant globs of solder over here. This really does look like an amp that, a tech was taught on. So there's just lots of work. I mean, just everywhere I see. Even look at this ground connection here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's quite poor. So yeah, lots of work needing to be done. We'll go ahead and get these out of the way so that just kind of future-proofing this amp a little bit. And yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. And just like that, we have added in the new screen resistors, and I also touched up some of the solder joints and just made sure everything looked okay. And it's all looking good. So we can go ahead and move on. So because the solder joints look a little dubious to me in areas, especially ones like here and here, where, yeah, they just look very dull, I want to go ahead and just redo these, honestly. So I'm going to remove the solder. I probably will end up redoing basically all the joints. It's a pretty simple amplifier, so there's not a ton going on. So it's a bit easier than others, but for sure, these areas I really want to be very, very careful about. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to do the same with the pots. Anything I see that looks even slightly suspect, we will be redoing. All right, so now we're going to start moving over to this area, and obviously this was part of I believe a master volume mod somebody did, and unfortunately it looks like they cut the blue moldeds that they're not going to be able to reach. So we might end up doing just some old resistor leads J-hooked on. It's not going to look perfect, but we want to maintain these caps versus having to have the owner purchase, new ones. So we're going to go ahead and first just desolder and see what we're working with here. Hopefully it's not too bad, but we won't know until we start pulling things. All right, so that was just, looks like it was just tack soldered on there, which means that this presumably is just one giant glob of solder, which it appears to be. So let's go ahead and remove that with the wick. Look at that. Well, you can't see from your plane, but if I bend it down, you can see there how dang close. In fact, maybe there might be enough room in here to pull it out on this side and get it in both ways. That's actually, that could be an option actually. All right, so we were actually able to connect the blue molded without having to really do anything. We're able to get the lead straight enough and then use the resistors to kind of overlap them, making kind of an X pattern to where they were pinned down by the leads crisscrossing over them of the resistors because they were long enough, and then obviously soldered together. So it had a mechanical connection as well as obviously the solder. So I think those will be rock solid, and we'll try it for this one. Cool, so we've now got both of these blue moldeds in, and we've touched all of these solder joints except for this one right here, but that one looks solid. So we were able to do the exact same thing on this one as this one, where we kind of crossed over the resistor leg over the cap leg on both sides so that there was a mechanical connection holding it in tight, and then solder added further up on the where they connect, as well as obviously the eyelet itself, plus the cap, which had the short lead. But everything here over should be solid, so now we can go ahead and continue on. Well, with this one, unfortunately, it was cut extremely short. So here, I'll zoom in. Hopefully you can see I did just a traditional J-hook, but I completely looped it around and just did a little solder here. So it's very clear it's J-hooked versus, tack soldered like this guy over here is. Hopefully you can see that. So, yeah, and then I actually had a leg clipping from the last amp I worked on where I had a new old stock blue molded that was installed, and I had to clip the leads, and so I had the leftover lead length there. So it's actually funny enough, a blue molded lead connected to the blue molded for the extension. So kind of funny. I mean, nobody cares about stuff, but just kind of funny how that worked out. So we're gonna go ahead and get this eyelet resoldered. All right, now let's just, again, we're just going to resolder every joint. In fact, let's hit this one right here, even though these are fine. Because the board is so warped, the solder doesn't want to do the dome really in certain spots because there's a huge gap right here between the bottom board and the top board. But there's really nothing you can do about that. But all these connections are super solid, not going anywhere. The resistor is tested basically fine. So we'll just kind of continue on. Now I'm not going to rip out the solder and redo every single eyelet, but we will be adding solder and just making sure they are flowed. So this lead right here is obviously not original. This should be a cloth wire, but it's going to the middle wiper of the, what was that, the treble pot, I believe? Yeah, treble pot. So we'll go grab a cloth covered wire I have to replace that. And then also this carbon film will be replaced with a carbon comp if I have the right value. All right, so we got a 470K installed here. The resistor that was in there was a 220K, and I don't know why, because the schematic calls for 470K. So we're putting this all back to original spec, and then I'm not sure if I filmed it or not. I can't remember, but obviously I put in the cloth covered wire for that bridge connection. So we'll continue our path down here and touch up all these solder joints. So the more I work on this amp, the more I'm seeing things. And for example, here, this resistor, first glance, you might think it's a, an original resistor since it matches the rest. It is an Allen Bradley, but it's first installed upside down. You can see the markings of the tolerance band. They're all facing down towards the tubes, the original ones on Fender. So it's upside down, and this is 100K, whereas the schematic calls for a 220K. So we're going to have to see if we have a replacement for that. All right, so we're making some progress here. So we replaced again. That resistor was not the right value. It was a, let's see what it was. What is that, a 56K? And that should have been 100K. And then we put in the, I think it was 200 or 250 picofarad cap right there, replace that. So we're making some progress. Now we got to kind of figure out what's going on with all this here, but it's so late. I think we're going to end here tonight and then continue on tomorrow when I'm feeling a bit more fresh. But we made good progress. So basically from here over, we've gone over and redone in some way. And yeah, we're going to keep moving. We're back. It's a new day, and we're just removing some of these caps that were here. This one was right like that. And then this one is bridging this eyelet and connected to this bus wire, which is connected to this cap over here, none of which is on the schematic. I'm not sure what they were going for there, but the work is pretty sloppy. We're going to return this completely back to the original factory 6G6 specs, and then from there we can, figure out if anything else needs to be done, but we're just going to try and get rid of all of this nonsense. So we're going to go ahead and just remove this side as well, completely clear out all these eyelets. I mean, nothing was even in the eyelets. They're just kind of tacked on. You can see the quality of work here is questionable at best, but let's go ahead and clear out the eyelets and continue on. Okay, so I've got this mocked up here, and it turns out I actually have in my stash a spare 0.1 400 volt blue molded. So we're able to get all of the caps in here to be blue molded, which actually worked out really well, all the main caps here. And then this is a 0.02, so that's, I think normally that would be a disc cap. I don't have any disc caps, that's totally fine. So yeah, this is actually going to work out really well. And we'll just go ahead and solder those in, and we're making a lot of good progress. Perfect. I'm actually really happy with that. And I'm sure the owner's going to be pleased I was able to get him a blue molded. So this is looking really good. And now we've done from here over. So we're making steady progress. We got rid of a lot of junk here. So onward. Well, I spoke a little too soon. Looking at the schematic here, excuse all my notes. There's just so much to try and parse out through this amp because there's so much poor work done to it. But if we look right here, this area right here is this right here. And this is a 0.1. It's supposed to be a 0.1. And then this was a regular 25 microfarad, 25 volt. So yeah, this should be, I guess, a blue molded as well, which is a bit interesting. This is going to pin 8, which is the cathode. So, or the 12AX7. So yeah, this should be a blue mold as well, which I don't have. So we'll have to use a Mallory there. So close, but still it's going to look much better than obviously everything else done here so far. So we will continue on here. And obviously this is just probably the worst part of the amp as far as hackery is concerned, just tacked on leads and all sorts of crap. So let's rip all this out and redo it all. All right, so we've got all, was it 5 connections in that eyelet, tricky to do, but we got it done. Now we can go ahead and solder this in. Moving our way down the amplifier, now we got this blue molded, which is not original. In fact, I'm not sure any of these blue moldeds were original. I think somebody purchased these and put them in, judging by the lead lengths on some of them. But this is a 0.047, whereas the schematic calls for 0.1. However, I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, this is just going to change the tone a bit, but I think we'll try it with the 0.047. I could switch between 0.047 and 0.1 and see if we like the tone one way or not. One way better or not. So really what I'm going to do is just remove it, see what's going, hidden under all this globs of solder, redo what needs to be redone. We'll probably have to do a hook like we did over here and get it solid, and then we can always circle back to it. So let's just go ahead and see what's hiding. Well, this guy's even shorter than that one, so this will be a bit difficult. All right, so we've got just a teeny little hook here. It's about the best as I can do. And then we'll do the same thing we did here and hook on a fresh lead. All right, I'm a little dubious of this happening here. And if I remember correctly too, this wire, we got to figure out what that is going to, because that is not supposed to be there. So this spot is supposed to go from here, A, to, looks like here. There's supposed to be a jumper from there to there, and there's obviously not. And this lead right here, I'm not actually sure where that's going. Actually, yes, I am. This is going to the caps in the doghouse, which is not correct. So, yeah, I'm not sure actually about that. I might need to phone a friend. So this, just to reiterate, this lead right here is going from the plates here over to the doghouse, connected to one of the filter caps there. Whereas, according to the schematic, this should be going from here to here, where this blue lead is, so from there to there. And this should not exist. And according, again, to the schematic, right here, this is the leads coming off of out of the doghouse here. There should only be a black lead there. So we have the black lead right here, but then here's the extra yellow. So I'm not sure why that's being done. So I think what we'll probably do is detach it, and then I will edit this video, put it up, and then wait for you guys to give me some feedback. Always appreciate all the experts that watch my content and are willing to lend a hand as far as deciphering that sort of stuff. So for now, we'll just get this all kind of roughly installed here. Let's just see, make sure this resistor is not chopped up or anything. Oh, it is. That's what I feared. Okay, well, let's just grab 100K. That's no big deal. Annoying, but no big deal. Let's see if we need to grab 2, actually. See if this one's also jacked. Yep, this one's also jacked. Why? Why would you do that? All right, so let's go ahead and just get this soldered in, get this soldered in, and we'll leave that one because we're going to have a lead to connect from there to there, presumably, based off the schematic. All right, that all looks good. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and end here for this episode of the series. We got a ton of work done. And really, from here over, not counting the pots, and I haven't touched up the solder joints here, but on the board itself, here over, as well as the bias supply and the, the transformer, 3-prong, all of that, we got a lot of work done on this amplifier and righted a lot of wrongs, if you will. So things are looking really good so far. We'll end here, and let me know in the comments kind of what's going on here. Again, this lead was connected here to the plates and going over to the first 20 microfarad filter cap in the doghouse. I'm not really sure if this is not connected there. What else is potentially wrong, I should say, in the doghouse as far as the wiring is concerned. And yeah, and so this is supposed to go again from here to the plates over right here to this section with the 220K and the 100K. So we're going to go ahead and end here. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to follow along with this series. And until next time, see you guys.